time on the story. If you look at the blood gas, right? Both of them are going down. Right?
So it looks
pH is down. So it looks like metabolic acidosis
with respiratory alkalosis.
Respiratory alkalosis. If that is the case, then what is the expected PCO2? That is 18 plus 9, which is 27, right? 27 plus 8 is 35, right? Plus or minus 1.5. So 32 is kind of low for that, right? So this is a mixed disorder. It's both metabolic acidosis and respiratory alkalosis. And once those two are there, now we now say, let's look at the anion gap, right? Anion gap is 132 minus 118, right? 132 minus 118, what is that? 14. So anion gap is what? So that means there is anion gap metabolic acidosis, right?
Yeah.
So that is not an additional disorder. It just gives us the type of metabolic acidosis there is there, right? So if anion gap is 14, then delta gap is 2. So if delta gap is 2, what was the initial bicap? Initial bicap is 20. It's not 24, which means there are two types of metabolic acidosis. There is anion gap metabolic acidosis, and there is normal gap metabolic acidosis and respiratory alkalosis. Got that?
Is it normal gap because the bicarbonate is 20?
Exactly. If it was just anion gap metabolic acidosis, when you add delta gap to this final bicarbonate, you will get 24.
Oh, that would make it normal.
That would make it normal. If you have gotten 28, that means there is anion gap metabolic acidosis plus metabolic alkalosis.
Oh, yeah, because
So it's got to be like that. So it's a triple disorder. Right? I thought I should go over that since I got a number of questions. Are we all good with that?
So you added, the anion gap was 2, so that means that you had 2.5.
No, delta gap was 2.
Right, delta gap was 2, so
Then in order to figure out what the initial bicap was,
you add that to the
add
18.
that to the 18.
So that makes it 20.
Exactly. Since it's not 24, that means there was another type of acidosis there.
Okay.
Right. Ali.
I just want to just clarify a little bit because when we first did it,
Yeah, I had a
we
different.
didn't add the potassium.
Yeah, I remember. Please, the value, when it is given to you, use whatever is given to you. If you have to calculate it, always add potassium to it. So it's abnormal anion gap is sodium plus potassium minus chloride plus iron.
So that's the reason why in class we got double disorder.
Exactly.
Because we didn't add it.
Exactly. I was in a hurry somehow. I didn't. Because I thought it was easier to calculate without potassium, then that kind of misled us. Okay? You're good? Good. So you guys are good with acid-base disturbances. Now we can move on to but remember that whenever it's a mixed disorder, you don't bother to compute the acuity of the respiratory problem, the respiratory component, because those estimations don't work in mixed disorders. So you only have to calculate the acuity if it's a pure respiratory disorder, alkalosis or acidosis, then you can calculate the acuity. Okay? I told you that, right? Yeah.
Sorry, Dr. Martin, so how would you name the disorder?
It's just a triple disorder. And the components are respiratory alkalosis, anion gap metabolic acidosis, and normal gap metabolic acidosis. So the two types of acidosis are present there. Okay? And it's kind of, yeah. You can see the reason in the presentation. That normal gap metabolic metabolic acidosis is coming from the diarrhea, right? The anion gap metabolic acidosis is coming from the lactic acidosis because of its low blood pressure, right? It's hypovolemic, right? So there is some kind of tissue hyperperfusion, even in some degree of lactic acidosis. That is causing the anion gap component of the metabolic acidosis, all right? So in this kind of a patient, if you stop his diarrhea and you give him IV fluid, you will fix this. But if you just give him IV fluid and you don't do anything about the diarrhea, the anion gap metabolic acidosis will disappear, but the normal gap will remain for as long as it continues to have diarrhea, right? Good. Excellent. So this is done. I'm going to finish up last week's lecture on pituitary disorder. I believe I stopped. What's going on with this one? Okay. And I believe we stopped at the beginning of hyperprolactinemia somewhere there, right? We finished growth hormone excess. You're all good with that. So let's start with this one over here. We're on the same page, right? Good. So now we want to talk about hyperprolactinemia. This is a nuisance. You see it in practice a lot, and you will never know what to do with most of it because of the range within which it falls. Okay? So when prolactin level is elevated, it could be physiologic or it could be pathologic, right? You expect it in pregnancy because in pregnancy, prolactin is elevated to get the breast ready for the baby. When the woman is breastfeeding, and then somehow when you're under stress, your prolactin level also goes up. That is the reason you notice that when you subject women to severe stress, psychological stress, their menstrual periods start fumbling. They start having missing periods and having multiple periods in one month. So if you are in a bad relationship and it's affecting your menstrual cycle, you need to reevaluate the position in that relationship. Because that means that stress is not small, it's a big deal. It doesn't matter what your mom tells you, you need to reevaluate that position. Okay? You know, the mother always wanted, they always say that you should get killed because they stayed. Like, I have to hold on. Okay? And that's a different conversation. All right. So, when it is pathologic, that is really, if you cannot figure out any physiologic reason, then pathologic. Most of the time, what you're worried about is a pituitary adenoma. So you can understand now that hyperprolactinemia is a kind of hyperpituitarism, right? Even though clinically you will never see hyperpituitarism. Whenever you see it, it's usually a specific type, either growth hormone adenoma or a prolactinoma or something like that. This is what you're concerned about the most. But what will cause it most of the time are these ones that are here. So, systemic disorders, hypopituitarism, hypothyroidism, seizures, chronic kidney disease, and liver cirrhosis. Both of these are related to the clearance of the normal prolactin levels, right? So, when you have kidney disease and liver cirrhosis, you're not able to metabolize the prolactin level as you should. So the levels tend to back up in the system. There is another one that is interesting. You can get hyperprolactinemia from pituitary stalk compression. Remember we said that the hormones in the posterior pituitary, they are stored in the posterior pituitary, but they are not synthesized there, right? So if you have a tumor that has nothing to do with the pituitary, but is so close to this infundibulum and this pituitary stalk and compresses it, then it does not allow the prolactin to flow from the hypothalamus to the posterior pituitary where it is normally stored. So then that prolactin backs up into the systemic circulation, and then you see elevated prolactin levels in the blood. And so many tumors can do it. Craniopharyngioma, granulomas, many tumors, even metastasis can do it. All right? And you will see, and so brain tumors that are close to the pituitary stalk, close enough to compress it, can obstruct the flow of prolactin from the hypothalamus to the pituitary stalk compression. The pituitary stalk of this is a very wrong figure that I have here, because the pituitary stalk compression we're talking about is the entire stalk. It has not the posterior pituitary. It's not unique to the posterior pituitary. The pituitary stalk has both anterior and posterior components, right? So I was talking about it as if we're talking about oxytocin. So prolactin is an anterior pituitary hormone, right? When you compress the stalk, the anterior pituitary stalk, you interfere with its release into the circulation and then it backs up. Okay? Sorry, I am apologize for that. And then there is a bunch of medications. A bunch of medication that will interfere with the hypothalamo-pituitary axis. Actually, I should change this to hypothalamo-pituitary axis. Patients on antipsychotics, antidepressants, even antacids, and some blood pressure medications, especially the methyl dopa, right? They will cause elevation in prolactin levels. So when you see prolactin levels going up, you don't always think about the worst thing. You always, most of the time, it will be due to one of these. You look at the medication history, look at the medical history of the patient, but you always have to do CT scan of the head, okay? Because brain tumors will give elevated prolactin if they are midline and close enough to compress the pituitary stalk. Yeah. How does it present? It depends on, now I'm going to the pathologic presentation. So this is how hyperprolactinoma presents when it is due to pituitary adenoma. Okay? So depending on the size of the tumor, you have headaches, you have visual disturbances, and you have infertility. Right? So headaches, because there is a mass in the brain. Visual disturbance because of the compression of the optic chiasma, right? Or chiasm. Infertility because of the influence of prolactin on the gonadotropin-releasing hormones and ovarian functions and testicular functions. In female, it tends to present earlier in females, right? So in addition to headache, visual disturbance, and infertility, females specifically, they tend to present earlier because they have a monthly event that makes it more noticeable earlier. And then they have amenorrhea and they have galactorrhea. There is no time a woman should, there is no time that milk coming out of a non-pregnant, of the breast of a non-pregnant female is normal. It's never normal. Okay, if you're not pregnant and you have milk coming out of your breast, something is really wrong. Men tend to present late, and they present with impotence and loss of sexual desires. Okay? And this is the cartoon that I put here just to help you understand how prolactin interferes with hypothalamic gonadotropin production. This is the reason for the infertility and the menstrual irregularities you get in patients with hyperprolactinoma. You remember hypothalamus and the gonadotropin releasing hormone, right? From the anterior pituitary, they release the gonadotropins FH, LSH, and see what prolactin does. Okay? It inhibits the hypothalamic gonadotropin production. Okay? So prolactin inhibits the production of gonadotropins at the pituitary level and also at the gonadotropin releasing hormone at the hypothalamus level. It functions at both levels to interfere with the release and secretion of gonadotropins. Okay? So once you see any of those features, you will measure the prolactin level. That is where the problem is. If you find prolactin level above 200, that is you have a diagnosis. That is the problem. That means there is a macroadenoma. There is an adenoma of significant size that you need to worry about. So prolactin levels above 200 is diagnostic. When prolactin level is less than 20, that is what normal is, right? The problem is when it is between 20 and 200, so 21 and 199, then you have to tell the lab. Most of the time, good labs will do this by themselves, but when it is between 21 and 199, I like to say between 20 and 200, statistically between 21 and 199, then good labs will reassess the sample by dilution. They will dilute the sample and retest because of this effect called hook effect. You see, the method they use to determine prolactin is based on antigen-antibody interaction, right? So if you have all the prolactin in single strands, the antibodies will react individually, right? And you have a good idea of the amount of prolactin molecules there. But there are times that the prolactins are linked in such a way that the antibody will recognize multiple molecules of prolactin as if they're one, right? And then you will underestimate the actual prolactin level. And this happens not just with prolactin, it happens with all sandwich acids. So you should look for, check it out. What are sandwich acids? It's a technique by which we determine hormones in the blood based on antigen-antibody interaction. It affects prolactin levels, and when you need to exclude hook effect by diluting the sample to free the molecules of and then retesting. What has happened is that most of the time, not most, some of the times, when the prolactin level is between 20 and 200, it is because of hook effect. So when you now repeat the analysis with a diluted sample, the sample will be over here and you have your diagnosis. Most labs will do this by themselves, but lousy labs will wait for you to ask for it. You say, so can you repeat it by dilution? And you should always ask for that whenever your level is between 20 and 200. Okay? Yeah.
The dilution just for you to know whether it's truly prolactin.
Exactly. You want to know whether it is really indeterminate or actually determinate, but because of hook effect, you're getting lower recording. Okay? So the idea is to just make sure that you're not missing a macroprolactinoma. So you dilute it to get the more accurate level of the prolactin level. Okay? And dilution just means dilution. You get normal saline and the equal volume of serum, mix them together. That is 1 to 2 dilution. And then you repeat it. But the dilution they use is a hell of a lot more. It's 1 to 100. Okay? All right. So, what do you do once you diagnose hyperprolactinoma? Well, if your patient has no, and sometimes you will do a CT scan for somebody maybe because they have a seizure or they have something or they have a TIA and you're doing a CT scan of their head to figure out what was the problem, and then the radiologist then go back away. Your patient has a prolactinoma. And then in that case, what you just do is just check the prolactin level to see if the tumor is active, producing prolactin. If the tumor is not active and your patient does not have any symptom and no desire for pregnancy, you just watch it. You repeat the CT scan periodically every 1 to 2, 3 years maybe, depending on the rate of growth, right? So if you do every year and there is no growth increase, you start doing every 2 years. If there is no growth in 2 years, you start doing every 3 years. You keep increasing the interval to save cost. Okay. How do we manage it? It's simple. Prolactin is regulated by dopamine. So we give dopamine agonists, and there are two types of dopamine agonists. There is bromocriptine and there is carbazolone. Okay, carbazolone is longer acting, a little bit more expensive. So most of the time we use bromocriptine, right? If there is, because dopamine is prolactin inhibiting hormone, it will inhibit the prolactin release by a prolactinoma. Okay? And if you inhibit prolactin release by a prolactinoma, the tumor itself will shrink. Right? So most of the time, all you need is just give dopamine agonist and you will cure the tumor. But there are times like that you will give the dopamine agonist, the prolactin level will shrink and go down, might even go down to normal, but the mass persists. And this mass in the brain is never anything you should tolerate because they cause problems, they compress structures, they cause seizures, they cause all those things. If there is residual mass effect, then you send them for transferal extraction of the tumor. Persistent headaches and persistent visual disturbances are the commonest reason for referring patients with prolactinoma for surgery. Okay? And this is just another way of saying everything I just said over there. Are we good?
Dr. Martins, could you reiterate where you said that, like, if you give the dopamine agonist, it's going to reduce the amount of prolactin?
Yeah, it will reduce,
which will cause the tumor to.
Yeah, most
to
of the time, when tumors are not active, any tissue is not active, it atrophies by itself. So once you, because dopamine is prolactin release inhibiting hormone, it blocks the tumor
from doing what it's supposed to do.
From doing what's supposed to, and then because it's not doing what it used to, its blood supply gets compromised and it shrinks by itself.
Okay.
But there are times that you still have residual mass effect.
Okay.
And that usually, you see, if the tumor is made up of absolutely normal prolactin secreting cells, they will be 100% sensitive
to dopamine.
Okay. But if the tumor is a complex tumor of, say, vascular tissue, connective tissue, some prolactin secreting tissues, when only the prolactin secreting tissue will respond to your dopamine agonist, those non-prolactin secreting tissues will remain. They are the ones that can promote the residual mass effect for which you're going to have to do surgery. Okay? Are we good?
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. So now we're going to talk about ACTH secreting pituitary adenomas. I think we talked about this last time. I told you that that is really what Cushing's disease is. You should be very clear in your mind the difference between Cushing's disease and Cushing's syndrome. Cushing's syndrome is excess cortisol in the body. That's what Cushing's syndrome is. Cushing's disease is excess cortisol that is driven primarily by an ACTH secreting tumor in the pituitary. Okay? Remember I said ACTH secreting tumor in the pituitary. There are other ACTH secreting tumors that will cause Cushing's syndrome that are not in the pituitary. Okay? Can you give me one example of such a tumor that you know about? In the lung, exactly. This small cell, right? Exactly. So that can cause Cushing's syndrome, but you won't call that Cushing's disease, right? Good. So Cushing's disease is specifically reserved for ACTH secreting tumors. And it is simple. This is what normal is. From the hypothalamus, you get the cortisol releasing hormone. From the anterior pituitary, you get the release of ACTH. ACTH goes to the adrenal, stimulates the release of cortisol. Cortisol exerts a negative feedback at both the pituitary and the hypothalamus level. That is what normal is. Now, if for any reason you begin to put out a lot of ACTH, and that usually happens from a neoplastic origin. Neoplastic cells are not sensitive to this negative feedback, right? And because they are not sensitive to this negative feedback, even though you have increase in cortisol, they keep pouring out ACTH, okay? And that is what actually results into the syndrome of Cushing syndrome, into the syndrome we call Cushing syndrome. And Cushing is the name of the man. And so how does it present? You have to know this, because sometimes they will just give you a bunch of this. The face is round because of adiposity. They get this buffalo hump, right? They bruise very easily because of excess steroids. And then they have truncal obesity. And the extremities are they basically begin to lose weight from the limbs and extremities and gathering it in the trunk. So truncal obesity is thin legs, and cutaneous striae, and sometimes some ulcers. But what you want to know most importantly are buffalo humps, moon for sheaths, truncal obesity, cutaneous striae, and stretch marks. Okay? These are very common. So, an example, they can just give you moon for sheath, buffalo hump. And they may not use the term buffalo hump because that you will immediately associate to Cushing syndrome. They'll tell you upper back obesity, describe it in some weird way. Right? Just pay attention to it. And then, yeah, that's what you see on the outside of it. And there is more to it on the inside because they have osteoporosis and sometimes their heart becomes very bloody. Okay? So, what do we do with Cushing's? Well, it's a pituitary tumor, remember, right? So what we always want to do is surgery. Because it's easy. You just have to go through the nose, crack the base of the skull, right there, and you can extract it. You can pick it up early. Right? If surgery works, they get immediate remission. Unfortunately, some of the tumor will come back. Because remember, it's not like, like when we do a mastectomy for breast cancer. So you have breast cancer, right? And the cancer is here, right? And then the surgeon will go in, say we'll do radical mastectomy. What does that mean? They're going to look at the margin of the tumor and they're going to resect like maybe 3 or 4 centimeters. They will say the areola and the tumor. So they say we do put wide margin. The wider the margin, the more radical the surgery. The idea is you want to make sure that the microscopic cells that you're not able to see visually, you get by the margin of your excision. Well, you can't do that with the tumors. You don't have that much room. How big is the pituitary gland itself? It's not that big, right? It's like an almond seed. Almond. What is almond? Is it a seed or the bark? Whatever, it's just a son of an almond, right? Right. So you see, you don't have that kind of room. So many times when they do that transsphenoidal surgery, they end up leaving residual cells. And those residual cells will repopulate, right? When they repopulate, then the tumor will recur. And then you have to go back, right? All right. Now, if for any reason the tumor is too close to the optic chiasma, that you cannot, the surgeon is not sure that they can take the tumor out without damaging the optic chiasma, they won't do the surgery. So some of the reasons why we will not do surgery is because the distance of the tumor to the optic chiasma or the size of the tumor is too big to come out through the nose, right? If you don't have any limitation, the tumor is of the right size, good distance from the optic chiasm, and it can be removed. You can do stereostatic surgery. That's always the case. If you cannot do surgery, you have to look for other options. We use fractionated radiotherapy. We use ACTH can be there and it will not do anything. It will do some things, but I'll talk about that later. So these are the options that we use. Radiation therapy, anticortisolic drugs. So the anticortisolic drug, they interfere with the synthesis of cortisol in the adrenals. So even though ACTH is going to come to the adrenals and stimulate cortisol secretion and synthesis, we use medications to block the synthesis of cortisol in the adrenals. So those medications that we use are called anticortisolic medications, right? And these are the list of them. We've come a long way with these ones because now we have the somatostatin analogs for serotype. We have the P450 inhibitors, and guess what? Ketoconazole used to be one of those. Then you have 11 hydroxylase inhibitors, methyropone and mitotoin. Then you have the corticoid receptors antagonists, mifepristone. This, I give you information only, okay? Because you will not use any one of those. I've not used any one of those. Once you diagnose the patient with your Cushing's disease, you send them on to endocrinologists. The endocrinologist will put them on one of these medications, most likely for serotype. But unfortunately for our patients, they get these crazy cheap medications, the thiropone and ketoconazole. And then your task is to make sure that the difference between newer medications and older medications is always safety and side effects. So when your patient gets good and cheaper alternatives, that makes your one a little bit harder, right? You have to now, once the patient comes back to you, you have to go out of your way to study the side effects that medicine will cause, the interaction between that medicine and the other medicine your patient is taking, then you manage the patient accordingly, okay? So that is all there is to that. Okay, all of this just interfere with, of course, you know that glucocorticoid receptor antagonists, they are the newest class of medication. Mifepristone, I don't know if you know Professor Stan in the Department of Medicine is doing a lot of good work with mifepristone. Okay, you're good? Yes.
So, exogenous cortisol intake is going to still be regarded as Cushing's syndrome?
Yes, but not Cushing's disease. Exactly, yeah. Okay? Cushing's disease is a cause of Cushing's syndrome, but it's not the same as Cushing's syndrome. Okay? Any more questions? You're good? Okay, moving on. So tell me, this is what happens when you take out the adrenals as a treatment for Cushing's disease. Because you see, at the pituitary level, ACTH is not produced by itself. ACTH is produced as a complex hormone, like a prohormone, along with MSH. But places where you will see adrenalectomy being done for treatment of Cushing's disease in some rural India. Indians are becoming very aggressive with surgery. And everybody is trooping over there from Africa to get these surgeries. So they still do some of these archaic surgeries because that's what people can afford. Okay, are we good?
Is it not having the pro-hormone cause that?
Say it again?
Is it not having the pro-hormone?
No.
I think it's
No.
negative feedback, right?
Remember that I said that ACTH is produced at the pituitary level, but not as ACTH. It is produced as a prohormone. That is a complex of ACTH and MSH. When you take out the adrenals, you eliminate the negative feedback. So the pituitary begins to secrete excess of this prohormone. Well, this prohormone ultimately gets split into ACTH and MSH. ACTH is not going to hurt the patient because there is no more adrenals. But MSH will, because you see have melanocytes. Right? The only way you can protect the patient is to kill all the melanocytes, and that is not possible. Okay? You got it? Excellent. Any questions? Alright, I'm going to go on now to antidiuretic hormone. You don't have any questions, right? You're good. Perfectly good. You're ready for anything. Okay. Alright. So let's do antidiuretic hormone. Well, as the name suggests, diuresis is water formation by the kidneys. So when you say antidiuretic, it means something that will prevent water formation from the kidneys. That's a very kindergarten interpretation of it. Okay. Now, how does it really work? And what is the point of this ADH? So we're going to start from here. Okay? So you've been drinking all this colored liquid. And because you're drinking all this colored liquid, the free water in that liquid is not really available to your body. Because if I give you a bottle of water, that bottle of water, 500 cc of water, goes directly into your blood. Yes? And it's available to your body cells. But if I give you a bottle of soda or a can of soda, there is free water in it. But remember that free water, that can of soda also contains sugar, glucose ultimately, right? Then once you drink it, the sucrose gets converted into the glucose and what? And lactose?
Glycogen?
No. Once you drink the sucrose, what is in sucrose?
Glucose and
Galactose.
Yes.
So once you drink it, the sucrose gets converted into glucose and galactose, right? The glucose and galactose both get absorbed into your system. That glucose is going to compete with your endogenous glucose for that free water in that can. You understand what I'm saying? So, unlike free water, where all of the 500 cc is available to your body, the sugar in the sweetened liquid you're drinking is going to compete with your body for the free water in that sweet liquid. Got that? So, that's why you get thirsty. And then, am I starting at the right place? No, you start from here. Right? So once you drink that soda, you begin to, soda is even, it's bad, but what is worse is like something like milkshake. Because milkshake has lipids, sugar, and a lot of osmoles. Osmoles are chemical substances, solid substances that could hold on to water, right? So they just come into your system and they begin to hold on to water and they begin to interfere with the osmolarity of the blood, right? Where your blood begins to become like thick, but also more concentrated than it needs to be, right? The osmoreceptors in the hypothalamus, they sense that. And once they sense that, they now release ADH, right? And they also give you the sensation of thirst. Of course, once you feel thirsty, you will drink water, and that will reduce your osmolality back to normal. But that is not my business this morning. This is my business this morning. So you release from the hypothalamus, the osmoreceptors, they sense it, they send message to the posterior pituitary, remember? And then that releases ADH. What does ADH do? ADH goes to the kidneys and causes water reabsorption. It causes water reabsorption. But it does it in a very sneaky way. Let me explain to you how ADH causes water reabsorption. So, once ADH gets to here, it increases, what you will read in the books is that it increases the permeability of the tubules in the collecting duct. Don't forget that. It's only in the collecting duct, right? And water is reabsorbed, and then again the blood is diluted and brought down to what it should be, around 300 milliosmoles per liter. That is what the normal. Ideally it's about 295, but to make it easier to conceive and calculate and deal with, we round it up all the time to about 300 milliosmoles per liter. That is the osmolality of serum, of blood. Okay? The way ADH does it is basically to place in the collecting duct, in the collecting duct, protein that are known as aquaporins. Aquaporins. I think it's Latin, right? Basically, porins is pore, aqua is water. So basically, aquaporins are water channels, right? So it doesn't do anything. It just goes there into the collecting duct and the loop of Henle and plugs these water channels in strategic areas where it knows that there is adequate difference between the osmolality of the blood and urine in such a way that the water will just flow passively from the urine into the blood. That is important. It's extremely important that you're able to conceive that, because that will matter a lot when we start talking about diabetes insipidus and SIADH and all that. Okay? You got that? Excellent. Why does ADH do that? The reason ADH does that is because there is a very strange mechanism in the kidneys called the countercurrent exchange mechanism. Before we found out about this mechanism, there was something we realized. We realized that when you take the kidneys, you have the cortex and the medulla, right? And you have the tubes and they do all that, right? And of course, you know that this is where the glomerular ends and the loop of Henle goes down deeper here. It turns out that when you take the kidneys and you extract urine from here, from here, from this point towards the medulla, the amount of sodium in the medulla is a hell of a lot higher than the amount of sodium in the urine from the cortex. So somehow, if you're able to access the tubules, you'll see that the urine is getting increasingly concentrated towards the medulla. We didn't understand why isn't, we know that the urine is filtered and the serum is filtered in the glomerulus, and what is needed is to recapture, and what is the waste is let go. But we couldn't understand this for a long time. So people started looking closely again and connects to the collecting valve, right? So this is the loop of Henle. It turns out that the blood vessels that are around the loop of Henle, they are specialized blood vessels. They are not regular blood vessels. They are not just there to supply blood to the loop of Henle. They are there for a specific purpose. And because they don't function like regular blood vessels, we give them a special name, the vasa recta. Okay? What do they do? So you see, urine flows in the loop of Henle through the descending limb, and the descending limb is over here, right? And then comes up through the ascending limb, and you know the ascending limb has a thick segment, right? Right? So you see, urine is flowing like this, but in the vas erecta, blood is flowing in the opposite direction. Right? This arrangement is what is called the countercurrent. The countercurrent is basically telling you the current of urine is flowing clockwise and anti-clockwise, and which one is whatever? One of them is clockwise and the other. Then the clock goes like this. Okay, so this is anti-clockwise, right?
Yeah.
And then the blood in the vas erecta is flowing in the opposite direction, counter, right? So that is why this mechanism, this special mechanism in the kidneys that you talked about in nephrology is called countercurrent exchange mechanism. What is being exchanged? It turns out that the descending limb of the loop of Henle, as the urine goes down it becomes progressively more concentrated because it loses water, right? So because it loses water, the urine gets increasingly concentrated as it goes down, right? But in the ascending limb, the thick segment of the ascending limb, sodium, the urine, once the urine starts going up the ascending limb, it begins to get increasingly dilute, right? And the reason it does is because the thick segment has these active pumps that are pumping sodium out of the urine. You got that? So water is leaving from the descending limb. That's why it's getting increasingly concentrated. But as it begins to go up, it begins to get diluted because now sodium is being pumped out. I know what is interesting. Because sodium is being pumped out over here, the descending limb of the vasa recta is picking up sodium, right? And when the blood gets here, it is the sodium that has been picked up in the descending limb of the vasa recta that is providing the traction, the force for water to leave the descending limb of the loop of Henle. You got that?
Yeah.
This simple arrangement regulates your body. It determines how your body handles free water. Okay? You got this, right? Anybody confused or need some clarity on this one? Because the understanding of this is critical for what we're going to talk about next. You're all good with this, right? Yes, Maureen.
So just to be clear, in the vasa recta, they're sending, it has a lot of pressure, that's why it's raising the water?
Yes, because the vasa recta is blood, and diffusion will make it, as the sodium is pumped into the interstitium on this side, it diffuses simply into the blood, the vasa recta. Vasa recta takes that and comes over here. Now, because there is a lot of sodium in the blood, that creates the attractions the water needs to leave the descending limb of the loop of Henle. Right? So this system, this countercurrent exchange mechanism, is what is responsible for free water handling in your body. Now, this slide is wordy, and every single bullet here is important. So this is where you want to stop writing. This is where you want to listen to me carefully. Make sure you understand it I'll put it in the simplest form it can be put, but maybe you can do a better job. I don't doubt that. So let's talk about renal. You know what is going on with Brandon? I'm burning right here because of my back. So that's why I keep doing this. I'm trying to relieve the pressure. So this one.
What's going on, Dr. Martins? You got sciatica?
I know. I've been having it for a while.
Dang.
From my patient escort days at UCLA. I used to be a patient escort at UCLA. You know, they used to use those big beds and those pumps. So I used to push those beds from the floor down to the radiology and back up and stuff like that. I did that for like 3 years when I was getting my exams. And now I hurt my back. I wish I could go back and sue them. I hurt my back, man. You know, pay me now. Of course, they knew that was coming, so they fired me before I come. So let's talk about renal free water clearance. So, renal free water clearance. In other words, in order for your kidneys to get rid of free water, it requires some amount of solute, right? Because there are solutes in the body that will compete with that water, right, for leaving the kidneys. So, renal free water clearance requires an obligatory amount of solute. In other words, you cannot pee free water. It is impossible for you to pee free water. There's got to be something in the tubules to hold on to that water to counteract the sodium in the interstitium. Because remember, ADH does not force water reabsorption. It just plugs water channels. What determines the flow of water is the solute concentration on either side of the channel. So if you have no solute at all, you know what a solute is, right? Good. If you have no solute in the tubules, all the water in your urine will be reabsorbed. The only reason you retain free water in your urine is because there is some solute in the urine competing against sodium for that water, right? The amount of solute that you need to hold on to free water and pass it out in your urine is called mandatory solute excretion. Those solute is their chemical name, but their individual name. They are made up of urea from your protein, right? Uric acid from eating tissue, some sodium, some of potassium salt that are normal excretory product of your urine, right? They are the reason you must have enough of this in the mandatory solute excretion to be able to hold on to water in your urine, right? Do you know the animal species that doesn't have to do with this? Birds. Birds don't pee. Their poop and their pee comes out through the cloaca, right? Yeah. So they don't have to deal with free water clearance and conservation, right? Okay.
That's why they're pooping all the time.
Because the poop and the pee is coming through one channel. Have you seen a bird pee before? Birds don't pee, right? Okay. And that's why their poop is soft all the time, because it has urine in it. Right? Good. All right. So that one is the first bullet. The second bullet is the amount of solute coupled to free water clearance depends on the amount of solute and water in the diet. So, since this urea, uric acid, sodium, and potassium salt are the solutes that will help you hold on to free water in your urine, then the amount of water that you can excrete depends on the relative amount of water, the relative amount of solute and water in your diet. You got that? Let me say it again. Since the solute in your urine determines the amount of water in your urine, your ability to pee depends on the balance of solute and water in your diet. If you keep drinking water without eating, you're not going to have enough solute to get rid of the excess water, so you will retain water. Right? And if you keep eating burger, and milkshake without drinking water, you will consume so much solute that the solute will be excreted and put you in a negative water balance. You got it? So that is what I'm trying to say here. That in order for you to be okay, you have to have at least 600 milliosmoles of solute to every liter of water. Right? In order for you to have enough solute to get rid of the water and the solute in urine, you must have at least a liter of water for every 600 milliosmoles in your diet. Okay? What happens when that is not the case? With little solute and a lot of water intake, the body will work with you. The body can excrete 1 liter of water with just 100 milliosmoles of solute. That's a very small amount of solute. So the body gives you room to do these crazy water diets, right? It can excrete a liter of water with about 100 milliosmoles of solute, right? Without putting you without messing with your water balance, right? Body will do that. But say you're not consuming a lot of solute and you're not drinking water. So with a lot of solute and little water in the diet, the body can pack as much as 600 milliosmoles into half a liter of water, right? To give you urine osmolality of 1,200. That is why the urine osmolality ranges from 100 milliosmoles per kg to 1,200 milliosmoles per kg, right? Depending on how much solute and free water is in your diet. You got that? Is this good? Mm-hmm. Excellent. Now, let's see when trouble comes. What happens when trouble comes? You're all with me, right? Nobody's confused?
No.
Excellent. From what I just told you then, it means that diuresis, there are 2 types of diuresis. Right? If you eat a lot of solute, you force diuresis, because that solute has to be excreted and it will go out with water. So if you have diuresis, you could have diuresis because of too much consumption of solute. Or you could have diuresis because you're drinking too much water. Right? So diuresis can be solid diuresis or it could be water diuresis. So let's talk about solid diuresis. When solute intake exceeds 600 milliosmoles and water intake falls below half a liter, that is the limit your body can handle. Now you're stretching your body. Solute excretion proceeds with the obligatory amount of water at the risk of free water deficit, even in the presence of ADH. So if you get thirsty because you're eating too much beef, your hypothalamus can release ADH. ADH can go to your collecting ducts and plug in the water channels, but there is so much solute Because you're eating so much meat that water will still leave the blood because the solute in the urine is excessive. ADH will not be able to influence water reabsorption because the solute in the urine, the solute in the loop of Henle is a lot, and water will still leave your blood. Even though your body is trying to save water, the solute will not let you. That is why you pee a hell of a lot more when you eat beans. Because beans is protein. It gives you a lot of solids. Do you notice that when you eat beans, you pee more? You didn't? Okay, it's because you've not eaten beans for dinner. So you don't remember how many times you pee. When you start eating beans for dinner, you remember beans makes you pee more. Because you have to get up to go pee. Right? But generally speaking, beans will give you free water. This is so important. And I'm going to tell you a story. There was a patient of mine, right? And I really like that woman. You know why I like her? Because her daughter cares so much about her. And when you see children show so much love to their parents, that's because those parents were good parents. Generally speaking, we don't like bad parents. Nobody loves bad mothers. I had a patient one time who was autistic, and the only thing he ever says is, "I hate my mama." That's what he says all his life that I've known him. "I hate my mama. I hate my mama." Look at this woman. You know, but this woman now developed, for some weird reason, syndrome of inappropriate ADH. So our posterior pituitary was just putting out ADH, and because it was putting out ADH, she was holding on to water and diluting serum sodium. One time her sodium went as low as 118. When your sodium drops below 118, your body tissues begin to swell because water begins to flow inside them. You can have a seizure because water rushes to your brain. You can have your blood cells can pop because the serum becomes so diluted. And I sent her to the emergency room the first time. The people did not do a good job. They couldn't figure out. I knew it was SIADH. I wanted them to give her medication. We usually use the microcycline, but there's some Baptans, now new medications that are available. I wanted them to get this. She has many, treat the woman. But nobody was making a diagnosis of SIADH. They kept sending her home. And every 2 weeks, you end up in the emergency room. I became scared because once you begin to frequent hospitals, you're going to die. Not of your disease, but something is going to go wrong in that hospital. You know that the hospital beds are the 6th leading cause of death in the country. Regardless what you go into the hospital with, just being in the hospital is the 6th leading cause of death in this country. Hospital beds are more dangerous than airline seats. Okay? So I got worried. So I wanted to make sure it's truly SIDH. So the last time she got admitted to California, I went in there and I called the nurse, give me the parameters, I looked at the parameters, what was going on. I knew it was SIDH. I told her when they discharge you, forget everything. No matter what they do, come and see me. So they said they didn't give her any medication because they said the insurance didn't cover it and anything like that. You know what I told her? She's diabetic, right? So I told the daughter, I went online and I searched for high protein snacks. High protein snacks. If it was diabetic and high protein, I printed it. I said from now on, this is what you give to your mom. These high protein snacks. She was like, but she's diabetic. I said, forget diabetes right now. I will bring the sugar back down once I fix this SIDH, right? So she went home and she was fixing the high protein, giving the woman the high protein snacks. You know what happens? What then happens was with the high protein snacks, she developed so much uric acid and urea, right? In such a way that the ADH was now powerless. So the ADH couldn't cause the excess water reabsorption anymore because the uric acid in the urine is so much and countering it. 6 weeks later, sodium went from 120 to 149. 2 weeks. 2 weeks. I beat the damn insurance system because I don't like arguing with these people. You will never win. You have nothing. There is no punishment for them ignoring you or disregarding you as a healthcare provider, especially if you're struggling for a patient that plan won't pay. I don't want to be caught in that. My patient doesn't have to die because two idiots are arguing. right? So you see, this is why it's extremely important that you try as much as possible to be the best you can be in whatever area you decide to choose to practice. Because people's life would depend on that. If I didn't do that, that woman would die. I guarantee you. As a matter of fact, the reason I became very interested was because the daughter in the clinic was crying. She's like, doctor, help me, my mom is dying. I'm like, but she doesn't have to die. She doesn't have cancer. She has diabetes. A1C is 7.1. Why did she need to die? What else can I do? And then I refreshed my mind about, okay, how can I treat SIADH without using drugs? And because I understood the basic physiology of it, I could use natural stuff. Man, listen, there were healthcare providers on this planet before they were doctors. You know? So, I'm just telling you this story. I hope that drives the point home. So, what had happened was that this was what happened to that woman. I increased the solid intake, right? And I restricted the water intake. That way, even though ADH is in the collecting duct, plugging of water channels, it will not cause water reabsorption because there's so much solid in the kidneys because of the diet, right? So I induced solid diuresis in the presence of ADH. You understand that? So I'm able to beat ADH because I modified the diet of the patient. So, high solid intake, a lot of salt and protein will give you solid diuresis, and then primary hypodipsia. Primary hypodipsia just means the patient is seen with old people, they don't feel thirsty. That's why when people go above 80, you have to make sure they say, Mom, you must finish this bottle before I come back. And you make sure, because they don't feel thirsty. Old people don't feel thirsty as you and I do. So you have to actually manage and monitor their water intake, right? So when they have primary hypodipsia, they don't drink water and they keep eating, right? So they end up with solid diuresis. Now, what about water diuresis? Water, when solid intake falls below 100 milliosmoles, you're not eating. You're drinking juice and drinking everything, nothing solid, no solid in it. And you begin to exceed water intake of 1 liter with 100 milliosmoles, less than 100 milliosmoles of solid, you're taxing your body. Your body will continue when solid intake falls below 100 milliosmoles and water intake exceeds 1 liter, renal free clearance ceases at the risk of water excess, even in the absence of ADH. What does that mean? When the kidneys don't have enough solid to form urine, they stop forming urine. You go into water excess. Okay? Low solid intake, primary polydipsia, excessive thirst. This is a psychiatric disorder. This psychiatric patients bring themselves to death, right? They don't eat, they keep drinking water, they keep drinking water. Well, if you keep drinking water and you're not eating, the water is going to, your body is going to hold on to the water, even if you have no ADH. You understand what I'm saying? Even in the absence of ADH, ADH is supposed to help you hold on to water, but ADH does not work in any active way. It only plugs water channels into the collecting duct. You need solids and water in some reasonable balance to make that water movement take place. So if you're drinking water and you're diluting your blood, you will turn off ADH. Right? You will turn it off because the serum is getting diluted. But guess what? You will still hold on to water, even in the absence of ADH. Why would you hold on to water? Because your kidneys will not have enough solid to cause you to excrete water. So diuresis could be water diuresis or solid diuresis. Did I land safe? Everybody got this? Excellent. It was not a rough landing, was it?
No.
Okay. Good. So now, we can now talk about how do you then evaluate polyuria. So if somebody comes to you and they say, I'm peeing a lot, the first question you want to ask yourself is it water diuresis or is it solid diuresis, right? And we call it diuresis in physiology. In the clinic, we call it polyuria. Because polyuria means I'm peeing a lot, right? And what does it mean to be polyuric? Anytime you're forming more than 100 cc of urine per hour, you're peeing too much. Okay? You measure your pee. But most people know when they're peeing too much. Right, so whenever you see polyuria means peeing more than 125 cc per hour or more than 3 liters a day. Right? So what you want to ask when somebody says, I'm peeing too much, how do you know you're peeing too much? Say, I pee a lot. You say, okay, each time you pee, would you fill a bottle of Arrowhead water? Oh yes, I will. Okay, that's about 500 cc right there. And how many times do you pee? Oh, during the day about 6 times, and in the night I get about 4 times. Then you know that is a lot. That's about 5 liters, right? So you tell them, would you fill a can of Coke with your pee each time you go, or a cup? Just have a way of measuring it. So you must know the volumes of some of the things that people use generally, right? In the hospital, no problem. They have a catheter, and you can measure it. But when they come in the clinic and tell you they are polyuric, you have to figure out a way to measure and estimate, all right? So what's the first thing you will do? You will measure urine osmolality. Did Dr. Ateza talk to you about all this? Urine osmolality, right? Did he tell you how it is determined and about water diuresis and solid diuresis? Did he talk about that? Okay.
Just until now.
Okay. But now you know it. So the thing about it is you measure urine osmolality. Once you measure urine osmolality, and urine osmolality is less than 100, you know you're dealing with water diuresis. Okay, this is somebody that is drinking a hell of a lot of water, right? If urine osmolality is more than 300, you know you're dealing with solid diuresis, right? Simple. Just a simple UA and looking at specific gravity, which is equivalent of urine osmolality, right? You know the normal one is 10, right? It goes from 1010 to 1040. So, less than 100 is equivalent to like urine specific gravity of 10 times. And then more than 300 will be equivalent to urine specific gravity of 1040. Okay? So you see how, once you do that, you know that this is water diuresis. When it is between 100 and 300, now it's a mixed polyuria. It could be anything. That is why you see these arrows point back here. Right here, toss a coin. Whatever, head or tail. You will arrive at the same answer, whether you do this or you do that. Right? So let's start with water diuresis. So if you think somebody has polyuria as a result of water diuresis, that is, they're drinking too much water and they are not eating enough solid to allow them to pee the excess water they are drinking, right? What would you do? Just put them in the hospital and tell the nurses, no water for this man. Do what is called a water deprivation test. Once you deprive them of water overnight, just because they're not drinking water anymore, of course, you don't just do that. You admit them in the hospital, you draw their serum osmolality and their urine osmolality, and then you put them in the hospital in the night. You say, I need you to meet me in California on your way from work this evening. Put them in the hospital that night. The next morning, you wake up at 6 o'clock. Go discharge them, but before you discharge them, you draw their blood and their urine for serum osmolality and urine osmolality. Right? And then they go to work, right? Good. If by depriving them of water for 12 hours overnight, you're able to cause the, of course, because they're not drinking water, their serum osmolality will rise. Because they don't have a disease, they're just drinking too much water. So once they stop drinking water, their serum osmolality will rise. And that will stimulate ADH release, and ADH will cause the urine specific gravity or osmolality to rise by at least 10%. If that is the case, that means your patient has water diuresis because of primary polydipsia. Okay? All right? You got that? Water deprivation, serum osmolality goes up, urine concentration increases. That means your problem was because of too much water. But what happens if you admit the patient, deprive them of water, their serum osmolality went up, but their urine stayed dilute? Well, that means, well, their urine is not concentrated, even though their serum osmolality went up. That means, well, serum osmolality went up, stimulated the pituitary to release the ADH, and ADH is supposed to cause the kidneys to hold on to water, but that didn't happen. Serum osmolality went up, but urine stayed dilute. That is what clue you in diabetes insipidus. Right? That means ADH is not working. For some reason, either it's not present or it's not performing. Right? So if in the morning you see the urine did not increase, then you now give them artificial ADH. If after you give them artificial ADH, urine now increased, that means it was a central diabetes insipidus. ADH was not present. But if after you give artificial ADH, the urine still did not concentrate, that means the kidneys are not responding to ADH. That's how you now say this is a nephrogenic or peripheral diabetes insipidus. You got that? Everybody got that? You want me to go over that? Right. Okay. So, somebody has polyuria. The first thing you want to determine is it, so that means it's diuresis. The first thing you want to determine is it water or is it solid? Urine osmolality less than 100, that is water. So you deprive them of water. If you deprive them of water and you make sure that that water deprivation worked by measuring their serum osmolality, because if the person was able to sneak out and go drink water, the serum osmolality will not increase because they're still sneaking out and drinking water. So the reason you really measure serum osmolality is to make sure that the patient did not have access to water. Because if the patient did not have access to water, the serum osmolality will increase because they're not drinking water anymore. And if their serum osmolality increased to at least 290, that is the point at which you expect ADH stimulation and release from the pituitary. If ADH was stimulated and released from the pituitary, then urine osmolality will increase also by at least 10%. If both of these occur, then your patient has primary polydipsia. It was sick because it was drinking too much water. But if water deprivation worked, because you could see that the serum osmolality went up to at least 290, but the urine did not get concentrated, that means ADH was not present or was not working. How do you tell the difference? You give artificial ADH. If after you give artificial ADH, the urine now get concentrated, it's okay, then this was ADH deficiency that you will call central diabetes insipidus. But if after you give artificial ADH, urine still didn't get concentrated, that means it is the kidneys that are not responding to the ADH. You say the patient now has a nephrogenic. If it is pituitary, you say it's neurogenic diabetes insipidus or central diabetes insipidus. If it is the kidneys that are not responding, you say the patient has a nephrogenic diabetes insipidus or a peripheral diabetes insipidus. You got that? Excellent. So, that is how you deal with water diuresis. How do you deal with solid diuresis? It's very simple. You just collect 24-hour urine and see what is it the patient is taking in. You measure sodium, potassium, glucose, urea, and all the other osmoles. Just collect urine automatically. And you do analysis to figure out what solid is causing the problem. And then you're home and dry. Right? We good? Excellent. Let's take this. Now, I'm ahead of myself, of course. Now, I'm giving you how do you diagnose diabetes insipidus and how do you diagnose both the central and the peripheral one. So I'm going to go now into diabetes insipidus proper. So diabetes insipidus, water diabetes as it is called. You know how we used to differentiate between diabetes mellitus and diabetes insipidus in the old days? Doctors tasted and patients too.
That's awesome.
That should tell you what the heart of the physician was in those days. I mean, think about the heart that would taste the urine of a perfect stranger. How much care do you have to taste somebody's urine just to help them? That is the nobility of medicine. We're not incentivized. We didn't come as a profession because people wanted to make money. No, we came into this profession because we really care about people. We are now so corrupt. And that really breaks my heart. And that's why I'm at Drew. Because I'm hoping that we can salvage the golden heart of medicine. From all this corrupting influence of the dollar. Because at the end of the day, you will not do your patients any good if you don't care that much. You have to care as much as those ancient clinicians. I'm not advocating you start testing people's urine. But your heart, the quality of your heart and compassion must be at the same level where you're willing to take some risk for your patients. I've driven my patients home in the rain because she had kids and it's raining and she's done and somebody is going to be dropped off by the school bus and she had to be there to take the kid. Otherwise the kid gets taken to school and now she has to start fighting child abuse and child neglect cases. You know what, let's go. I'll take you. I was scared because I was driving into neighborhoods like the boyfriend, I hope he doesn't think I'm dating his wife. And shoot from the window or something. But it's a risk, but I had to take it. Because if I didn't take that risk, she would have to suffer a hell of a lot more. I'm just using this to say that pay attention to your heart. It is the most important part of you as a care provider, not your head. Your heart is the most important.
A question about water diuresis. On the 2 slides ago, you said renal-free water diuresis at the risk, even at the absence of ADH. So you're saying that at first, when you drink too much water, you reabsorb water in without.
Under normal circumstances, when you drink too much water, right? You dilute your serum or your blood. The hypothalamus osmoreceptors, they sense, oh, the blood is too dilute. They will turn off ADH, right? Once they turn off ADH, you begin to pee a hell of a lot more because ADH is down, right? Now, if you keep drinking water and you're not eating solids, your body will still turn off ADH, but you will not form urine.
Why is it called diuresis if you're not forming?
No, we're talking about normal state. You're not crossing over abnormal state. Understand the normal first.
Also,
The normal.
the slide is normal.
Yes, the normal thing is that you're drinking a lot of water, you're not eating solids, you dilute serum, you turn off ADH, your body's purpose of turning off ADH is to allow you pee the excess water. But because you're not eating enough solid, your kidneys can't pee water. They need some solid to excrete that free water. Right? So ADH purpose, for your body's purpose for turning off ADH will not happen. So that's what I mean by renal free water clearance ceases even in the absence of ADH. Because under normal circumstances, in the absence of ADH, water free water clearance should increase and go on.
Okay, so what if,
Go ahead. No, ask.
because the slide before too, it says polyuria.
Yeah.
So, and you know,
I'm trying to understand
it's all
which.
healthy.
I think she's gonna keep. Wait, are you about whether water diuresis do you pee or not?
In water diuresis.
Somebody just told
Are
me.
you talking about like with the diabetes?
No, let's finish
No,
one question.
I'm trying to.
Okay, clarify our question,
Yeah.
okay.
I think what she's trying to get at is that yellow slide, is that saying the different types of pee? Like, let's say if you're peeing one.
Is it the
piece-
slide?
Yeah, one.
Is it the
would be-
slide?
Yeah, so I'm saying for both, you pee too much, right? For both of them,
Okay.
or
Oh, you pee too much, but it's slide.
This slide is basically telling you the different type of diuresis there are. Diuresis is polyuria,
yes.
right? You could have a solid diuresis or you could have a water diuresis. And the explanation here is giving you the mechanism for solid diuresis, right? The mechanism for solid diuresis is when your solid intake is a lot and your water intake is not enough. What you will do is your body will accommodate you to some extent. But once you exceed that limit, and that is when your solid is more than 600 and your water is less than 500 cc, you have already exceeded the body's limit to accommodate you. In that case, you will increase serum osmolality because of your solid intake. You will turn on ADH. ADH will go to your kidneys and try to stimulate water reabsorption, but it's not going to work because your kidneys will not have enough water because you're consuming so much solid that ADH will not be able to cause water reabsorption. The solids you're consuming that are present in the urine will have to leave with water. And that is what solid diuresis is. It's polyuria driven by excessive intake of solids. That's what that is. And then water diuresis is polyuria driven by excessive water intake. Okay. So this two is just telling you different types of polyuria, physiology of it.
I was just confused because you say that water diuresis is polyuria, and then you say you stop making it.
Water diuresis is polyuria.
But then you tell us that you stop making urine, that you drink too much water.
Okay. I see what you mean. It sounds like contradiction in terms. Water diuresis, you don't stop making urine. It's a diuresis,
Yeah.
right? But what I'm saying to you is, when you drink too much water, you pee. The serum osmolality, urine osmolality will vary because you're okay, provided you're drinking too much water, but you're still eating some solid, and your kidneys have some solid to make the urine, so you pee normally, right? When you exceed the ability of your kidneys to make up for your little solid intake, free water clearance ceases, right? So free water clearance ceases because you don't have solid anymore to excrete. So at that point, it's not that you stop peeing, right? It's just that you pee at the expense of body water loss, free body water loss. Under normal circumstances, you pee or you don't pee, the purpose is to maintain free water balance. But once there is discrepancy between your solids and free water intake, you will have to get rid of that solid, even if your body has to be thrown out of water balance. That is what the thing is. We can talk about it some more. I'll help you understand it if you still don't understand it. But what this is about is diuresis, which is polyuria. It could be driven by solid or it could be driven by water, right? You just need to understand that there is a limit between 100 and 1200 milliosmoles per kg that your body can accommodate you. Once you exceed either of those limits, you go into water or you go into solid and diuresis. Okay? So let's talk a little bit more about diabetes insipidus. So from what we talked about, diabetes insipidus is basically deficiency of ADH secretion action. Alright? Deficiency of ADH secretion or action. When it is due to deficiency of secretion, it is called central, also known as pituitary diabetes insipidus or neurogenic diabetes insipidus. It is idiopathic 50% of the times. We don't know what causes it, but a few times it could be caused by tumors, tremors, infections, especially TB, syphilis, toxo, or it could be due to sarcoidosis or histiocytosis, even hemochromatosis, right? So, but most of the time you will not find a cause for it, right? And then it is known as peripheral when it is due to kidneys ADH inaction. Kidneys are not responding to ADH. It's called nephrogenic, or it's called peripheral diabetes insipidus. What causes that? Look at it, mostly drugs. Lithium, amphotericin B, aminoglycosides. Okay, then it could also be caused by hypercalcemia, hypokalemia, polycystic kidneys, amyloidosis, sickle cell disease, obstructive kidney disease. Like sometimes people have a BPH, right? And it's so severe, and they were in Burundi, they couldn't get help. So they go into obstructive neuropathy and they damage the tubules, right? Then when they come to the US, we do the surgery for the prostate and they go into peripheral diabetes insipidus because the tubules are damaged. The kidneys are no longer able to respond to ADH because of the prolonged obstruction that they've endured over the years, right? So these are the two common ones. This is what you see in the books. But I put it here for you, so just you know. There is another one you see in pregnancy. And that's because somehow there is an enzyme that the placenta makes called vasopressinase that destroys ADH. Under normal circumstances, it's not supposed to interfere with the mother. But the idea is for it to destroy the ADH that crosses the placenta from messing with the baby's water balance. You know, but then when it gets into the peripheral circulation, it destroys ADH and can precipitate diabetes insipidus. This one is easy. I put it in the center because your patient is pregnant. So if you diagnose diabetes insipidus in pregnancy, that is gestational diabetes insipidus. It is due to excessive production and or impaired clearance of placental vasopressinase. Vasopressinase is the enzyme that destroys ADH.
So it affects the mom.
Yeah?
It affects the mom, not the fetus.
Yes, the mom, gestational. Of course, the baby is not pregnant. Huh?
For the fetus.
Yeah, it's supposed to protect the fetus, but then it hurts the mom. No, it's coming from the placenta. And now because there's too much glucose.
That's okay, thank you, Caroline.
Okay. This is diabetes insipidus mellitus. Okay. So your patient is pregnant and they develop diabetes insipidus. All right, moving on. So how does diabetes insipidus present? Diabetes insipidus will present with polyuria, polydipsia, tachycardia. You can see that, right? The primary symptoms is polyuria, polydipsia. And because of volume depletion, they go into tachycardia and hypertension. And because of free water loss, serum sodium goes up. You get that? So this is not a bunch of lists. It's deliberate. Just pay attention to it. Polyuria, polydipsia are the symptoms. Tachycardia, hypertension are the signs. High serum sodium is the lab finding, right? Then because of dehydration, you get what they call pre-renal azotemia. Azotemia is when you have elevated BUA creatinine ratio, more than 20. Okay? It's called pre-renal That means that BUN and creatinine is increased because of something happening before the kidneys. So when we talk about renal insufficiency, we talk about pre-renal, post-renal, and renal causes of renal failure, right? Then you see like urine specific gravity is less than 10. So that tells you this presents as a water diuresis, right? You see serum osmolality is greater than 300, right? Because they're losing a lot of water. Look at urine osmolality is less than 300 because they are not concentrating urine. Urine sodium is high, is low, less than 40, and urine chloride is less than 20 because urine is dilute. So these are the urine parameters, right? They are tested. And generally speaking, once you see this, you compute serum osmolality. And this is the formula for computing serum osmolality. Okay? It's 2 times sodium concentration plus BUN divided by 2.8 and glucose divided by 18. Okay? So you can use how you compute serum osmolality. And the number you want to see is 300. Even though the actual concentration in normal is about 295. But we just round it to 300 for assessment purposes. Okay? Excellent. Are you with me so far? All right. Huh? No, you can't get a break. I'm going to go through 2 more slides and I'll give you a break. Remember, this is the catch up for last month, for last week. I still have thyroid to talk about today. So I am on F1 this morning. F plus 1. All right, so let us now see if you really understood everything I've been talking about. So here is evaluation of somebody with diabetes insipidus. You want to figure out, is this a central diabetes insipidus or is it a peripheral diabetes insipidus? I'll give you a break. Right? So you put them to water deprivation. You put them in the hospital, fast them of water overnight for 12 hours. You collect urine for osmolality after they fast. You give subcutaneous or IV aqueous vasopressin, that is your artificial ADH. You wait for 1 hour after the injection, and then you collect urine again for osmolality. Simple, right? We talked about this earlier. So, if your urine osmolality is less than 300, right? Okay, so I'm starting from here. If your urine osmolality is less than 300 and it goes up after water deprivation to 800 and you give the person artificial ADH and you don't get any response, that is a normal person. Right? Or somebody with primary polydipsia. You remember, a normal person will not come to you with a complaint, right? So I just put that there for you to know that this is the normal response. But I want to make sure you understand why that is the normal response. Remember, I told you that once you deprive the person of water, first of all, from baseline, you know this urine is dilute. Once you deprive the person of water, serum osmolality goes up. They will turn on ADH. ADH will go and cause water reabsorption from the urine. That is why the urine osmolality rises. So the rise of urine osmolality to 2 times what it from its baseline tells you ADH is present and the kidneys are responding to it. Well, if ADH is present and the kidneys are responding to it, giving the person additional ADH will not have any impact because there is adequate ADH in the circulation and there is already maximum response at the kidney level. So giving the patient additional ADH will not have any impact. That is why that is what is normal, and that's what you will also see in somebody with primary polydipsia. You got that? Did everybody get that?
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so let's say you got urine osmolality less than 300. That means urine was dilute, right? You now put the patient on water deprivation, and after water deprivation, the urine got concentrated some, but it did not really reach 800. So he went up above 300, but he was still under 800. So there was some concentration. And now, when you give the artificial ADH, you get less than 10% increase in urine osmolality. That is what tells you this person has a nephrogenic diabetes insipidus, because the kidneys, they were not concentrating urine and they're not responding to artificial ADH. You got that? Excellent. Now, supposing you have dilute urine, and when you put the patient on water deprivation, he went up some, but he never really hit 800. But when you gave the artificial ADH, you were able to elicit more than 10% increase in urine osmolality in response to artificial ADH. That is what makes the diagnosis a neurogenic. That means ADH was missing from the system. That's what makes it a neurogenic diabetes insipidus, right? And I already told you this. A 12-hour water fast is expected to drive serum osmolality above 290, maximally stimulate ADH release, and raise urine osmolality above 800. That is the reason we're using 800 and 300. You all got that? Excellent. So how do you then treat diabetes insipidus? Well, if it is central, you give medication. Desmopressin is your agent. But you know what's interesting? Thiazide diuretics, they cause paradoxical decrease in urine output in patients with partial
Central diabetes insipidus.
Central diabetes. So, somebody has water diabetes insipidus, you give them thiazide diuretics and you can treat it. We don't know how it works, okay? But that is the gamble. Of course, you can also give them chlorpropamide. That is a blood sugar lowering medication. You have to watch blood sugar. The medication that we intend to use right now is desmopressin or DDA-BP. Diamino delta D-arginine vasopressin. Basically, it's vasopressin. Okay, that's how you treat it. How do you give it? 1 to 2 by injection, QD or BID. You cannot. It's also available by nasal spray. You can also give it by mouth. You titrate, and you want to maintain urine output between 10 and 30 mils per kg per day. Okay? All of this is details. All I need you to know, desmopressin. Sometimes you get a weird response with thiazide diuretics, and when it is a peripheral diabetes insipidus, we don't really have a cure. Okay? When the kidneys are not responding to ADH, we don't know what to do with the kidneys. So what we tend to do is give mega doses of ADH. Okay? So you give high dose, tenfold. So you're hoping that by increasing the dose, you can plug the kidneys into responding. Other than that, people have come up with all kind of craps, like thiazide diuretics with amiloride, low sodium intake, high potassium, NSAIDs, everything we've done. When it is peripheral diabetes insipidus, you can treat it with anything you want. Okay? And if it works, you report it, because we don't really know what to do with that right now. Okay? So, are you all good with this? Right? Everybody clear? Doing, are you better? And no questions? Or you wish?
I'll ask you later.
Excellent, okay. Are we all good? Excellent, so you can have a break now. But it's going to be... Hey, I'll keep moving the lectures forward until one day I'm stuck and I'll just have to have you read up. Remember, this is a master's level program. So I have that ACE card in my back pocket. But don't worry, we'll be okay. The thyroid one is not as complicated. Right? Where are these folks?
They should be recorded. It's
No
okay.
man left behind.
We're
We're recording.
All right.
That's messed up.
They can read up.
All right, so you've seen ADH deficiency, right? You know about it being neurogenic. You know about it being nephrogenic. ADH deficiency. Now we're going to flip the script. Now we're going to talk about ADH excess. It's called syndrome of, I was trained to call it SIADH. But now they call it SIAD. I don't know what the heck they're doing. So when you're addressing me, please call it syndrome of inappropriate ADH secretion, SIADH. Okay? So basically, what is SIADH? SIADH is inappropriate hypothalamo-neurofacial trigger. Something is making the pituitary put out ADH more than is needed. In other words, ADH is no longer being secreted in response to serum osmolality. It just being put out there, like that. Okay? And what does that do? And what causes it? It could be due to CNS disorder, sometimes in stroke, or meningoencephalitis. You know what I believe? I really believe, even though this is not being talked about, but the way I know that this can happen is if you have a stroke or you have infection that takes out the hypothalamic osmoreceptors, then the pituitary is blind. It doesn't have any gauge of serum osmolality, and it does the safest thing, put on ADH. Alright? So that is what my hypothesis. Right? But it's very common with pneumonia, and we don't know why. Again, I think it might be hypoxic interference with osmoreceptor function. This is way. You know, sometimes I make up this little hypothesis to help me connect these things and remember them. Right? So at least if I know that you can take out the hypothalamic osmoreceptors by stroke and infection, then I will be able to piece it together. How can I connect lung disorder to SIADH? Maybe it causes hypoxia. I don't know. Right? But more importantly, there is ectopic production of ADH. You know about the old cells of the lung, right? The small cell. We'll talk about that. And then there are medications, psychiatric medications, antidepressants. Where is Bradley? Where's your homeboy, man?
I was just looking for him.
Okay. All right. So, psychiatric medications like antidepressants, phenothiazines, and chlorpheniramine, they can also cause ADH secretion, right? So this is for, right? Then you have the nephrogenic inappropriate antidiuresis. Remember, for the diabetes insipidus, we have the neurogenic and the nephrogenic, right? So the same thing for SIADH. We have the central one where you're producing ADH inappropriately, but you also have the peripheral one, which is a nephrogenic inappropriate antidiuresis. This is so rare. It's the peripheral equivalent of SIADH, right? So it's so rare. It was just recently discovered, actually, in 2005, right? Two baby boys, and it was caused by a mutation, an activating mutation of the vasopressin receptor in the kidneys. And what was happening to them was that they were retaining water and diluting serum. And the way it came about is that one of the babies, newborn, had a seizure. How did the newborn get a seizure? And they checked the serum sodium, it was so low. And then after, if this was actually in it's not in Yale or somewhere, right? And so this is not for you to worry about, it's for information. Okay? This thing called NSIAD. Okay? This is my business this morning. syndrome of inappropriate ADH secretion. All right, so how does it present and what do you want to do about it? Whenever this happens, what is happening is that water is being reabsorbed inappropriately because ADH is floating around in the system and plugging water channels throughout the collecting duct. And with the right solute amount, you will get water reabsorption. Okay? Now, because of ADH, urine volume will drop, blood volume will increase. That makes sense, right? You're holding on to water. And because urine volume drops, urine osmolality, because urine volume drops because of lack of water in the urine osmolality goes up, right? And for the same reason, urine sodium goes up. And because of increase in water, blood volume goes up, and then serum becomes dilute, right? And because serum becomes dilute, you get dilutional hyponatremia, right? So you have hyponatremia, low serum sodium, simply as a result of dilution, right? This is where it gets tricky. Because you get dilutional hyponatremia, you will turn off aldosterone. Is that what you expect? Should aldosterone be decreased when serum sodium is low?
No, because it's one of
Right, that's not what you expect. Right? Speak up. But why does it happen here? Why does aldosterone drops in the presence of low serum sodium? Aldosterone does not respond to sodium in isolation. It responds to serum sodium within the context of the blood volume. So because the blood volume is expanded, even though serum sodium is low, aldosterone will be turned off by the renin-angiotensin system. This is the only time that happens, where aldosterone drops, even though serum sodium is increasing. The reason this happens in SIADH is because SIADH expands blood volume. So aldosterone is more sensitive to blood volume than it is to serum sodium. So it goes down because I don't want to rupture the blood vessels. That is the reason urine sodium increases in SIADH, because you turn off aldo. You got that? So take a good look. Then, because of the hyponatremia, patients now develop anorexia, nausea, vomiting, they become irritable, they become confused, they hallucinate, they have seizures. All of this happens when serum sodium falls below 120. That was why I freaked out when that woman's sodium went to 180. Because that is when bad things begin to happen. You know, think about a 78-year-old woman having a seizure. She will hit her head, she will break a bone, and then there goes death. You know. You got that? Excellent. How do we diagnose SIADH? Oh, very difficult to diagnose. Very difficult to diagnose. Because SIADH, in order for you to call it SIADH, you must make sure your patient is euvolemic. You must make sure that the serum sodium is low and serum osmolality is low. You must make sure that you don't have adrenal insufficiency, right? And you must make sure that the urine sodium is high and urine osmolality is high. Those, only when all of these are present and your patient still has manifestations of SIADH, that is when you can call it. So you don't diagnose SIADH without being absolutely sure that your thyroid is fine, your adrenals are fine. Because remember, if adrenal insufficiency will present with low serum aldo, right? You must make sure your patient is euvolemic. urine sodium must be high before you diagnose SIADH. How do you treat SIADH? I mean, that is pretty straightforward. You got that?
Yeah.
That's good. All right. I'll know how much you got it in a few minutes. So how do you treat SIADH fluid restriction? Because no, I mean, having ADH everywhere, ADH can only hold on to water that you drink. That's right. So restrict the water. So fluid restriction is big. And when serum sodium is below 120, that is the only time now that we give 3% hypertonic saline. And we give it along with Lasix. You can understand that, right? So you give Lasix together with free water, and you give sodium so to bring the sodium up. And you do it carefully, slowly, because acute changes in serum sodium predisposes to a neurological complication called central pointing myelinolysis. The neurons in the pons, they lose their myelin sheet when there is acute fluctuation in serum sodium. It's called CPM, central pontine myelinolysis. Okay, it's like the pons neurons lose their myelin sheet whenever you do that. So what happens is you discharge the patient after you heroically corrected low serum sodium, and the patient come back later with all these neurologic manifestations. All right. So this is what you do for acute treatment. For maintenance, for those that are rich on the west side of town, there is conivaptan, tolvaptan. These are new medication called Valproxol, Sampa, Genoc. These are only available for injections and very expensive, $10,000, right? So very expensive, but it's available, it's out there for those that can afford it, all right? Long-term correction, you can use demeclocycline. Demeclocycline is an antibiotic, right? SIADH used to be a side effect of demeclocycline, right? So we now try to take advantage of it for treatment of SIADH. And you know what is interesting? Demeclocycline has been generic for over 30 years. When they discovered that we can take advantage of that side effect of demeclocycline to treat SIADH, you know what the company did? Hike the price. You know, just like that guy did for penicillin injection, for EpiPen injection, and he got punished by Congress. Everyone speaks. But nobody's talking about it. Maybe I should publish something about it. I'm waiting for somebody to die. And I will use the date to push the case. You know, people listen when there's lots of life. Otherwise, they'll call you nice maker. You just lie, it's not a problem. When somebody dies, you can say, this person died because of your policy. That's why we do policy research. Because policy kills. There is a paper I'm still working on. I call it PIMP.
What? PIMP.
Population impact of metropolitan policies of economic development. That's what I'm doing.
I like that.
That's why he was dressed like that yesterday.
Yeah.
They will make the rent unaffordable for locals. And next thing you know, we lose. People are leaving Saturday now, moving to Riverside, because of economic development, with Lagos thing coming down here. And I'm still working on it. It's not done yet. But somebody said that you can't. I don't think I should.
No.
Keep it.
It makes an impact. Titles matter.
Yes, and where you were yesterday. And where you were yesterday when you presented.
Yeah.
Oh, where'd that shiny suit from yesterday?
In a cane, yeah.
I like that. We don't have enough time. So, the macrocycline is the most potent inhibitor of ADH on the planet. But it takes 2 to 3 days to start working. So what we generally do is treat with fluid restriction and saline, hypertonic saline, and then we now give the mecosline cream to maintain it. And almost always look for the cause and treat the cause. Treat the pneumonia, look for meningitis, whatever it is, treat it. And I told you this already, rapid correction of low serum sodium. Whenever you change somebody's serum sodium by more than 12 units in any 24 hours, you predispose them to osmotic demyelination syndrome called central pointing myelolysis. Okay, you rapidly correct too much sodium with more than 12 units in 24 hours, you will discharge the patient feeling cool, like, oh, I fixed that acroneuremia. Next thing you know, your patient comes back with acute paralysis, multiple cranial nerve deficit, diplopia, dysphagia, central pointing myelolysis. You know why this will present, right? You don't need to try to remember the manifestations of pointing myelolysis. What are the cranial nerves that come out of the pons? 5, 6, 7, 8, right? Look at the symptomatology. You got that? So sometimes you just know one thing in front of the other. You're going to memorize it. Okay? Excellent. So let's do some quick stuff. So we're going to mark this, right? The whole class. We're going to go the whole class. Okay, so we're going to mark diagnosis: acromegaly, diabetes insipidus, amenorrhea, Cushing's, menstruation. All right. I want to hear that same chorus. So, case number 1. Baseline 50. After water deprivation, he went to 900. With vasopressin injection, he went to 898. What is that? Thank you. That is a healthy patient, right?
Yeah.
A. So, baseline 200. Water deprivation went up some, but still under 800. With vasopressin, 750. What is that? It's less than 10%, right? Because when he went from 700 to 750, it's less than 10%. So that means the kidney is not responding. So you say it is nephrogenic, right? Everybody agree?
Yeah.
Excellent. How about this one? Baseline 150. After water deprivation, went up to 650. With ADH injection, went up to 900. What is that?
Neurogenic.
Thank you. Neurogenic, central diabetes insipidus. What about case number 4? Baseline 400. Water deprivation 1200. Vasopressin injection 1196. What is that?
Shouldn't 4 be healthy patient and then 1 be primary polycystic?
Well, tell me. You think 1 will be what?
Primary polydyspsia and then 4 would be healthy patient.
Good. That you? Thank you. Thank you. That is absolutely correct. Because when you call this a healthy patient, will a healthy patient come with a baseline of 50? So, you're right about this. Case number 2, you're right about this because I actually have the answers back here. Right? So, you have this, you have that slide, right? You don't have the answers? Okay. All right. So, the reason this has to be primary produced is because your patient was not normal. A normal person will be normal at baseline. Right? Good. Good. All right. But you're right about case number 2 and case number 3. And then case number 4. So this is the one. What is case number 4? Baseline is 400 milliosmol. When you deprive the person, you went to 1200 and you gave them the person, you didn't make much. That is a normal person there. Right? And then what about this one? You started out with baseline urine 1010.
Yeah.
After water deprivation, you went from 1010 to 1012. You gave vasopressin and nothing happens. What is that?
Get the same.
Thank you. So you got that? Okay. Now, you got that, right? Okay, excellent. So now here is this 33-year-old woman who was brought to the emergency department after an episode of generalized tonic-clonic seizure. She's confused and unable to provide additional history. Review of the medical record indicate that she has had schizophrenia, but stopped taking all her psychiatric medication 3 weeks ago. Her temperature is 36.7, blood pressure is 130/76, pulse is 80, respiration 14. Examination, normal pupils. Patient's lungs are clear to auscultation and her heart sounds are normal. Her abdomen is soft, extremity examination shows no edema. Lab as follows. Serum sodium is 118. Well. Serum potassium is 3.4. Creatinine is 0.8. Serum calcium 8.4. Glucose is 98. Serum osmolality, so we don't have to calculate it, is 252. That is low. It should be at least 290. Okay, so this is somebody with a problem. But look at urine osmolality. Urine osmolality is 78. Why is this woman's urine osmolality 78 in the presence of serum osmolality of 252? Is that normal? In the present, did you say it's not? When serum osmolality is low, what should the kidneys do? A normal person will put out water. So urine will be a lot more dilute, right? Right? So it is not unusual that she has 78 of this, right? This is low. Remember, 100 is where you want it to be, right? But urine specific gravity is also 10 to everything is low. Now the question is, which of the following is the most likely cause of this patient electrolyte disturbances? Do you think it's adrenal insufficiency? No, right?
No.
Because in adrenal insufficiency, potassium will be high, right? In adrenal insufficiency, glucose will be low, right? Because cortisol is counter-insulin. Is it fluoxetine-mediated hypothalamic antidiuretic hormone production? Is this SIADH? Why is it not SIADH? It's not SIADH because, thank you, urine is too dilute for SIADH. For SIADH, urine will be concentrated, right? Is it idiopathic central diabetes insipidus? Is it central diabetes insipidus at all? Why not? Huh?
Because your serum sodium.
Thank you. Serum osmolality will be high in diabetes insipidus because the patient is losing free water. So it is not diabetes insipidus at all. Right? Is it primary polydipsia? It looks like it. Right? So the answer is really primary polydipsia. Did you follow that logic? It cannot be syndrome of inappropriate ADH secretion because, again, urine osmolality is high in SIADH. You got that? Are you able to synthesize that? Would you have been able to get to that answer? It will take some time.
Yeah.
But now you know what to look for, right?
What's normal?
Urine osmolality is normally 1010 to 1040. 1010 to 1040. 1.010 to 1.040. Right? So I want you to notice that in all these cases, they often will mix diabetes insipidus and SIADH together for you. So you must know what urine osmolality and serum osmolality should be in diabetes, insipidus, and SIADH. If you had no idea what to do here, you know that you can never make the diagnosis of diabetes insipidus, peripheral or central, without water deprivation test. So the fact that they did not give you any information about water deprivation test means the answer cannot be this or this. Right? And you know that they didn't give you any reason why the patient will have adrenal insufficiency. Potassium is fine. They didn't tell you she had surgery, abdominal infection, anything. So that rules this out. And you know that serum osmolality is generally high in SIADH. Right? So that is, by elimination again, you can come at that answer. That is a very likely question in your exam. So it tests your real understanding of the concept. Okay? Good. Are we good? Okay, so we have some time to do 5 ideas.